When I started learning Russian, I looked up a list of 1,000 common Russian words and I put them on an Anki flashcard deck. Now, my thumbs hurt a lot after putting everything in manually, but it was definitely worth it because this deck was one of the reasons why I was able to quickly get to a decent level in Russian, and I want you to have the same experience. That's why in this video, I'm going to give you 7 tips and strategies that you can use to also quickly learn a large amount of Russian words using Anki. You want to make sure that when you're learning Russian words, you learn them both ways, from Russian to English and from English to Russian. The reason why you want to do that is because it's much easier to read a book than it is to write a book. And the same thing goes for learning Russian words. If you want to understand that the English word for дерево is tree, it's easier than figuring out that the Russian word for tree is дерево. It's simply more cognitively demanding. Now, all my own decks have this setting automatically in there, but whenever you create your own deck or you are downloading someone else's deck, you have to make sure that the cards are basic and reversed. Otherwise, you're just going to get them one way, and this will hinder your ability to learn these words well. A common mistake people make when learning new words is that they just look at the word, they just quickly press show answer, then they press easy or good just in order to get to the next word. Now, this is a mistake because you actually want to be putting in a little bit of mental effort in order to better remember the words. This will make it much more effective. So what I want you to do instead is, for example, you get a word. You see the word to think. What you do now is you ask yourself, do I know what the word to think means in Russian? And if you right away is like, of course, that's думать, then you just press easy. If you're kind of like thinking, thinking about it, I think that's, it's думать, then you just press good. If you're like thinking, and only after 10 or 15 seconds, like, oh yeah, right, it's думать, then you press hard. And if you don't know it, you just press again. Doing this will make sure that you get much more usage out of Anki Droid. So be sure to ask yourself what the word means and then give an honest answer. Another mistake that people make is that they spend way too much time on each word. Like, if you don't know the word after, let's say, 20 seconds, chances are very small that you're actually going to remember the word later on. If you don't know the word for 20 seconds, just press again, see what it is, get the word repeated in a couple of minutes, and then see if you know the word then. The reason why you don't want to spend too much time on each word is simply because it makes the entire process much less efficient. Like, if you spend, for example, let's say 6 seconds per word, 50 repetitions in 5 minutes, or 100 repetitions in 10 minutes, this is much more efficient than if you were to think about for 30 seconds about each word, and then you would only be able to do 10 repetitions in 5 minutes. Like, Anki is based on spaced repetition, which means that it's good to repeat words often because the spaced repetition part will take care of you learning and remembering the words. Whenever you're learning words, you want to be sure to be focusing on those words. You do not want to be distracted. Now, Anki is great because you can put it on your phone, and which means that you can basically learn words everywhere. But one of the traps can be that you can also get notifications on your phone, or you can be sitting and watching TV, for example, while trying to learn some words. So it's easy to be distracted. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be like 100% laser focused every single time you're learning words with Anki, because I've learned plenty of words like waiting in lines in public places, or sitting in a bus or in a train in public transport, and having some like small distractions outside is not really a problem. But it's really a problem when you're, for example, learning words and at the same time you're getting notifications from a chat messages and you're responding to those at the same time as you're learning words. That's simply going to cause issues, and being distracted will make it so much more difficult to learn words. And it's much better to spend 5 minutes relatively focused than spend 20 minutes half focused just going through things. So be sure to focus while you're learning words. Another mistake is that people just use a deck that's actually not good. Anyone can upload their own deck to the Anki website, so there are quite some decks available, and some of them you would better not touch because there can be quite some crappy decks. Like, I know from experience that a deck I used at a certain point, there was a word for дорогой, which means dear, expensive, but the word actually said, the translation said road. And while technically, yes, Дорогой is the instrumental case of дорога, so it can mean road. In this case, this is not a word that you should be using in this way. Дорогой simply means dear, expensive. Another example that I had was, I got the question to reply, to respond. And their Russian translation was отозваться, which is technically correct, but this is simply a word that only should be learned by advanced Russian learners, because the normal word for to reply, respond, is отвечать или ответить. So be sure that whenever you're downloading a deck, that you have read the reviews or that the deck comes from someone you know and trust. There's one simple thing you can do to make learning Russian words with Anki twice as effective, and that is to include audio with all the Russian words. This is the benefit of, first of all, improving your own pronunciation skills, because it gives you the opportunity to hear a word and then to repeat it. Second of all, this will make it easier for you to learn something, because if you hear something and read it, it's going to be easier to remember the word than if you just read it. And third of all, it will also help you to work on your Russian intuition skills, which you just build by listening to a lot of correctly spoken Russian. So whenever you have the possibility to pick a deck with audio, it will make it so much more effective to learn Russian words with Anki. A mistake I made was that I did not add any stress marks on the words. Like, for example, with the word растение, it makes a lot of sense to right away put a stress mark under or over the yeah, so that you know that you have to say растение and not растение, for example. I also didn't have any audio, so this basically caused me to later on having to repeat all these words in order to figure out where the stress needs to be, and make sure that your deck either already has the stress marks or that you add them yourself, because this will save you so much effort later on. If you found this video useful and you quickly want to learn a lot of new Russian words in a short period of time, then check out the link in the description below. Спасибо вам большое за просмотр и желаю вам удачи в изучении русского языка.